Hi guys, it's Sophie. So September's come and gone. We're now in October. Yes, everybody loves October. I'm one of the people who loves October too. It's very exciting. I'm just glad it's here. All of my favourite things are all wrapped up in it. I read sort of a little bit less than I normally do in September. If you see my video, you'll kind of know why, but I'm so excited to show you some stuff. Not going to split it into two because, as I say, there's a bit less this month. There's a couple you will have seen me chat over already, so I'm just going to sort of swing those past you. The first of which is Hystopia by David Means. I've done a whole review on this one, which I'll link for you above if you're interested in checking that one out. And similarly, All That Man Is, I have a full review on, which I'll link above as well for you. Okay, so we're going to start with non-fiction. The first one I have to show you is Under the Banner of Heaven by Jon Krakauer. This is a true crime, which I thought was kind of apt for the season. I love true crime. If you are someone who notices things like this, hang on. Okay. See all my true crime? They were pointing out this month because it's creepy. There's one just behind me that I'm going to show you real quick. I think I've talked about it before, but it's the time of the year. My Friend Dharma by Durf Back Durf. It's a graphic novel about Jeffrey Dahmer and it's really good. I just turned it around and thought I should show them this. But anyway, Under the Banner of Heaven. So essentially we're following two men, the Lafferty brothers, who sort of entered into this really odd world of sort of fundamentalist Mormonism. And through this sort of intense faith, a murder is committed. And the book follows their story very loosely. It's far more of a sort of exposition of Mormon beliefs, and specifically the sort of fundamental Mormon beliefs, though the book does sort of criticise Mormonism as a religion under the sort of guise of this true crime story. It wasn't really what I was looking for, to be honest. I think it was interesting and I learned a lot about Mormonism that I had no idea about before. It's not really a big deal here in the UK. But it's not true crime. It's sold as true crime. The back says, born into an average all-American family, the brothers Ron and Dan Lafferty insist they are commanded to kill by God. Jon Krakauer's account of what follows is a chilling narrative of polygamy, savage violence and unyielding faith, as well as an exploration of Mormonism that inspired the crimes. No, it's the other way around. It's him having a go at Mormonism and then explaining how it tied in. But if it sounds of interest to you, then maybe do go for it. I think that the author has quite an sort of anti-religion viewpoint, but that doesn't bother me particularly. But if Mormonism is the faith you follow, then maybe this isn't one you're going to enjoy. But yeah, there's that one. And then the next one I know is not going to interest everyone, but it's Every Love Story is a Ghost Story about David Foster Wallace by D.T. Max. I really enjoyed this one. It gives a really nice overview into David Foster Wallace's life. It's very personal, it's very sad, it sort of takes away that gleam and shine he has, as sort of that like genius figure, and makes him very human, very flawed, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good sort of biography piece in that it highlights the reasons why you like a person and shows you things that might make you dislike them, but in actual fact just end up making you realise how real they are. So yeah, I think it's really successful. I did enjoy it. If anyone is a David Foster Wallace sort of fan or interested in finding out a bit more about his life and what inspired his books, then this is a good one, I think. And then the last non-fiction I have for this month is The Gene by Siddhartha Mukherjee. This one it's essentially a sort of extended piece about genetics and about the role of genetics in medicine. That's the best way to kind of describe it. I read and loved The Improbable Maladies by the same author, and was hoping that this was going to be very similar in that it was going to track sort of the same kind of enemy of illness and doctors as sort of heroes. That was a really thrilling way to read non-fiction. Unfortunately, because genetics isn't necessarily just a bad thing, there was a little bit less of that, and I did think I enjoyed it less. It was an interesting book and I learned an awful lot, especially kind of stuff that I'd learnt a little bit of in biology, but then because I left pre-A level, I never went on and learnt any more, so that was really interesting. But as a book, it's not as compelling as The Improbable Maladies, and if you are looking to start with a Mukherjee, I'd recommend you start with Emperor rather than with The Gene. And then fiction. So I have a couple of short story collections. The first one I literally just showed you guys in my haul, and that one is Will You Be Quiet Please by Raymond Carver. These are sort of very short, as I said, not quite flash fiction, but very short pieces, a couple of pages each. It's set in a sort of very minimalist style. I liked the stories, but they didn't resonate with me personally. the way I'd sort of phrase it probably is that I could tell that they were good pieces of fiction, I could tell the stories were well formed, but I didn't have a personal link to them. It didn't sort of spark that recognition in me that I really look for in short fiction. I think potentially because I normally look for more descriptive prose, and this is quite a sort of strict minimalism, that I missed a little bit of that just sort of descriptiveness and sort of fluff, I suppose, the fluff that comes along with stories that makes it so lovely and pretty. I think I did miss it, and I think that's why I didn't enjoy it as much as I know that a lot of people do. But the stories are still good. If you like minimalist storylines and you aren't so worried about the descriptive elements, etc, etc, I think you might really like this. And then the next one I have is Sandlands by Rosie Thornton. This one was kindly sent to me by Sandstone Press, and this is a really interesting little collection of short stories. They're all set in and around Suffolk, and they sort of fall into a category of almost, it's not really magical realism, a little bit of it feels like magical realism, but I think it's more, I don't know, like a pastoral kind of tale is what it feels like. So that all these sort of weird stories around rural life, none of them are necessarily magical, but you could sort of get a magical feel from them. So an example is the nearby church, the pastor becomes pregnant and they need a replacement, and they find this woman who is very into sort of pagan gods and starts doing sort of strange things with the church. Like, it could equally be a real storyline, or it could be something that you're seeing supernatural or mystical elements in. I really liked them. I think they reminded me of home an awful lot, and I don't get to read an awful lot about the countryside. It just doesn't seem to be a thing that people publish, is sort of really rural tales and stories. I think it's kind of old-fashioned now, like everyone assumes everything happens in the cities, and it was just really nice. It was just a sort of like breath of home for me. And even though I didn't grow up in Suffolk, I grew up in Somerset, which is a kind of slightly different kind of countryside. A lot of things, like little tiny details, were exactly the way they'd been in my childhood, and it really meant an awful lot to me. I think even if you didn't have that sort of personal connection of England or of the countryside, they are nice little stories in and of themselves, but I think they're going to appeal most to those who either enjoy spending a lot of time in the countryside or have grown up in that kind of environment. And then on to novels, and the first one I have is The Guest Cat by Takashi Hiraide. It's a little tiny book, and this story focuses around this couple who are living in this house. It's a Japanese novel, living in this little house in Japan, and sort of both of them are quite insular kind of people, and they really relate to one another and not to many other people, and this cat comes into their life and sort of begins to stir up the relationship between them. I read this in one sitting, well, one morning's worth of sittings. I really did like it. I think it's nothing life-changing, but I do think it's a really nice story, and I love cats, which is just, you know, that's going to help. I mean, I really like the company of cats, but my brother hates them, so we're not allowed to have one in our house. And I read this, and I actually went to a pub in Bristol, because I was in Bristol that weekend, called the Bag of Nails, and the Bag of Nails is a cat pub, and I'll chuck a picture in now. But yeah, so it's just full of cats and kittens. They had 6 new kittens when I was there, and 16 cats in total. So I read this like surrounded by cats, and actually it was a really nice sort of experience. I don't really know whether or not this is going to be for everyone, because it is such a quiet sort of storyline. But something about it I just really liked. It's kind of hard to explain. I don't know if it was just there were cats, and it was a nicely drawn picture of cats, or whether there is something more to it than that. Decide for yourselves is what I'd say. It's not terribly plot driven, but it is sort of nice, and I think just quite a gentle way to spend an afternoon. If you're looking for that kind of thing, then this might be a good book for you. And then the next one I have is Security by Gina Wohlsdorf. Now, everyone said in the last video that this really hurts their eyes, so there you are, I'm going to put it down now. So the premise of Security is brilliant. It's a very secure sort of hotel where the rich and famous go to sort of ease their woes, knowing that there is a very tight security sort of cohort looking after them all the time, and that they aren't going to have any sort of threats on their life or any publicity, depending on what kind of guests they are. And we follow the team that's setting up this hotel. And within the setup, some strange events start happening, and it appears that someone or something is taking over the security system and using it against them. Brilliant idea. I was completely drawn in by that. However, I could not stand the writing. I was irritated near line by line by this book, which is a real shame because I wanted to love it, and I think I went in thinking I was going to quite like it. As you know, my expectations were quite high, and the storyline is good. The writing just nearly killed me. Like little contradictions and little things where it felt as though I'm not really sure, as though maybe it wasn't edited right. I mean, this is a complete copy. This isn't an art copy, but it felt as though maybe it hadn't been like line edited. So there'd be things like on one page, a character had died, and on the next page it said something like nearly verbatim, like character not quite yet dead, and I was like, she died just like I can see in the span of these 2 pages her death and her not being dead, and that's so easily fixed. Like if you want to say that she appeared to be dead, or the character thought she was dead, or you know, whatever, that's so easy to do, and it just frustrated me. And there were lots of little things that niggled at me as I went through, that I just couldn't sort of get past. There's sort of a love line through this as well. You guys know I don't really do romance stuff, and it just felt so fake and stupid. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be like catty about it. It's just one of my sort of big frustrations is when an idea is really good and I don't think it's dealt with as well as it could have been. It's just irritating. I thought this could have been a really good book, and I just didn't really personally enjoy it. I know that lots of people other than me have. It's the kind of thing where I don't read an awful lot of straight up thrillers anymore, and I read a lot of literary fiction, and I think probably the kind of writing I'm looking for isn't the kind of writing that tends to be in thrillers. Not all the time, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with like thriller writing, but for me this felt like there were plot holes in it, and it just pulled it down to me. I couldn't deal with it, I'm afraid. But yeah, I know other people have liked it. Ooh. I know other people have liked it, and if it sounds like your kind of thing, the storyline's great fun, so think for yourselves. And the next one's another kind of horror book, because it's cold and dark and lovely. And it's Slade House by David Mitchell. This one came out last year, around this time of year, like October. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed it, and it was in my Waterstone for like £2 on their clearance shelf, and I thought, go for it. It's an interesting little one. I have to say that I did have some problems with this one too, but just to give you sort of outline of the story, it's sort of set around this old house, as you can kind of tell. Like it's a beautiful cover, like the cover is absolutely gorgeous. That sometimes appears not to exist, sometimes I think it's every 9 years, it kind of arrives and becomes real again. I have a thing for haunted house stories and for locations as points of horror. That's a really big thing for me. That's one of the things that really scares me. So I was interested to see what I thought of this one. I did like the idea, and actually I've never read David Mitchell before, and I did enjoy his writing, but it felt repetitive to me. And if you've read it, you'll kind of know what I mean, but after the sort of second round, I would have happily sort of have it rounded up and finished at that point. But yeah, I don't know, I've sort of seen in some comments and stuff that this relates quite heavily to one of his other books called The Bone Clocks, which I haven't read, so maybe I was missing something there, but as a thing, it was okay, the idea was cool. I just thought it got a bit repetitive. That said, I read it quickly and, you know, had no particular issue with it bar the repetitiveness. 2 more to go. Both sort of kind of creepy. I'm going for creepy stuff. So Under the Glacier by Halldor Laxness. So I hauled this one fairly recently after having gone to London, and this was one of the ones I was so excited for. I was so ready for this book. Set in Iceland, a sort of pastor's gone a bit mental, and the Bishop of Iceland has sent off this young emissary to go and find out what's gone on, why he has decided he doesn't want to open his church, and why he doesn't want to bury any of his dead people, and why he's just gone off and sort of fixing primer stoves and shoeing horses, and to see sort of what is going on. it's a really hard book to judge because I thought it was brilliant up to like here. Like this much of the book is funny, really interesting, dealing with some really like cool deep ideas, talking about God and life and reality and the value of religion, like whilst being really bloody funny and a really gorgeous setting. And little bits of it reminded me of home as well. There's a bit where they're describing the people getting off this bus that he's going to the village on and how they disappear as if they're living off in this bog somewhere that he can't see any houses. I just love stuff like that. And it went mental. Like I don't really know what happened. It kind of picked up this almost like Scientology vein as it went through, and it suddenly like tipped, and it's really hard to explain, but like the reality of the book shifted. Like it was almost a funny kind of story that was believable, and then a sudden jump into like magical realism. It was interesting, but I kind of wish the Scientology side hadn't been there. I would have preferred for a sort of stronger focus on the folk elements, because the book itself is dealing with a lot of different kinds of aspects of religion. And it had both to play with, and I think for me personally it went a bit like a madman's journal, which I don't always, you know, it's not always a bad thing. I quite like that kind of stuff, but I just didn't really know what was happening. I felt a bit sort of like, oh my goodness, I don't really know what the author is attempting to do now we've disappeared down this side road. It was interesting. I think it's something I will probably need to like read again and see if I can figure out what happened. The ending was cool as well, but yeah, interesting one. Not quite what I was expecting. Very, very bloody funny book, but a bit mad at the end. So there you go. You'll decide whether you like that or not by yourselves, I'm sure. And then the very last one I read this month was Tamper by Alissa Nutting. So we follow a young teacher who I think is 26. She's sort of visibly gorgeous, absolutely stunning, and she is attracted to sort of on the edge, boys on the edge of puberty. So it's not quite sort of paedophilia, it's not young children, it's more sort of like 13 to like 15-year-olds, so quite a specific age range. And she has entered into teaching to try and seduce and sleep with these young boys. And I kind of agree with what the girls I was with said when they were picking it up, that to some extent it's more disturbing because it is this female perspective rather than Lolita's sort of male perspective. And I think that's probably just because we're exposed to the male perspective more and it's less expected from a woman. I think I was surprised by how sexual this book was. Like, at points it kind of read as though it was like erotic writing, because of the detail that she's going into in describing this character's fantasies. And I haven't really been expecting that. I've been expecting a little bit more of a sort of literary feel to it. I don't know, it's hard to recommend or not recommend this. I think it was interesting, and I am a great one for reading about female violence and female danger, because I think it's important not to have femininity whitewashed and say that females are always kind and gentle, because I think there's a risk to that, and I think it devalues a lot of the abuse that goes on for men if they are in an abusive relationship with a woman. And it was interesting. I ended up giving it 4 stars because I think it was well written and an interesting idea. Lolita's a better book, which is kind of seems obvious, but it is. I still sympathised to some extent with this character, as I think, you know, the author draws you to. But throughout all of it, I was like so aware of these boys. I think because I have like 2 younger brothers, and I have cousins who are like the same age. Like I don't know, I was sympathising more with the boys, despite the fact that the novel was trying to make you sympathise with this woman, because I just really felt for them. But yeah, I don't know, if that sounds like something that's going to interest you, then give it a shot. It is obviously dealing with difficult themes, so it's up to you whether or not you think that that is something that's going to bother you. But it's an interesting exercise, if nothing else. So that is everything that I read in the month of September. I think it's a longer video than I'd planned on making, but hey ho. Hopefully you've enjoyed that, and got some ideas about some stuff that you might be interested in picking up, or some stuff that you definitely don't want to get your hands on. Yeah, hopefully you're all well. I'm going to be filming a short sort of September favourites next. I've been toying with the idea of doing favourites videos and think, actually, do you know what, it might be nice. So I'll see you soon in that video. Hope you have a lovely weekend or week or whenever you're watching this, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye bye.